Hello again. This section of the class is where things get a bit more interesting. The first part of the section deals with residential construction. It identifies the various components making up a home. In Real Estate 114, we go into more detail on this topic. For now, please note that on page 237 of the book, there is an excellent diagram of many of the components making up the construction. I have also included it as a diagram that you can download from the course documents file in this class. The next part of this section covers the first of three approaches to estimate value, the cost approach. The three approaches to estimate value are the cost approach, the sales comparison approach, and finally, the income approach to estimate value. These three approaches are used to find three separate indicators of value. Later, we'll learn about the reconciliation process, where we look at each approach and reconcile the differences and come up with a final opinion of value. The cost approach is a way of looking at the value of the property by basically adding up the two major components of the property. First and primary is the land, so we figure out what the value of the land is. Second, we figure out the value of the building or the improvements. The improvements are all the things that improve the property since it was vacant. It includes the buildings, it might include the landscape, it would include the driveway and the sidewalks and all of the flat work. It would also include any other things that have been done to the property which probably contribute to the value of the property. After determining the cost of the improvements, we estimate how much the improvements have depreciated since they were new, and we subtract that value from the value, giving us the depreciated improvement value. Then, we simply add the two values together. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic concept. The value of the land plus the value of the depreciated improvements equals the value of the property. That is the value via the cost approach to estimate value. The land can be determined by comparing it with other vacant land sales, or it can be determined by finding other sales where the land is similar, but not necessarily the buildings or improvements, and by mathematically subtracting the improvement values from those sales. After subtracting off the value of the improvements of these properties, we end up with the value of the land by itself. This process is called the extraction method. The cost of the improvements can be determined by cost estimating. There are several cost estimating data sources which can be used to determine the cost of the construction. One such source, which is very popular in the appraisal industry, is Marshall and Swift. Another source, which has gained a lot of popularity, is Building Cost Net. You can Google it if you like. As well, I have provided a link in the web link section of the class. That is building/cost.net. When using these sources, accrued depreciation must be applied to the replacement cost new. Other sources will estimate the depreciation as well. It is important to the appraisers when using any of these sources to understand depreciation and to apply it correctly, whether through the source or even applying it manually to the replacement cost new. It is only the appraiser whose eyes have actually seen the property who can properly apply the depreciation. Having said that, this chapter explores the different kinds of depreciation. There is physical deterioration, there is functional obsolescence, and there is external obsolescence. I think all of us understand physical deterioration. This could be from worn carpet or paint, or just buildings which are in a state of disrepair. Functional obsolescence is from within the structure itself. It can be from antiquated design or even from unappealing designs. For example, in the current marketplace in Orange County, a 4-bedroom house with one bathroom would suffer from functional obsolescence, since that is not what the market wants. They want many more bathrooms, and they are willing to pay for it. So an older home, or even a brand new home with only one bathroom, would suffer from functional obsolescence. External obsolescence occurs from external sources or off the property. It could be from a railroad track in somebody's backyard, or it could be from a busy street or from freeway noise. I think you can see why it is so important that the appraiser sees the property and makes the right kind of adjustments for depreciation. Many of these things causing depreciation may not be evident unless the appraiser actually inspects the property and makes the right kind of adjustments for the depreciation. In Chapter 9, we explore the sales comparison approach to estimate value. Simply put, we gather data regarding other sales in proximity of the subject property and analyze them and compare their components to our subject property. We compare the square footages of the property. We try and compare the bedroom counts, the bathroom counts, whether they have pools, and similar or dissimilar amenities. We look at the quality of construction. Does it have tile counters in the kitchen and baths, or does it have Formica counters? Does it have a Viking stove or Whirlpool appliances? When it is all said and done, we make mathematical adjustments for these characteristics. In addition, we make adjustments for the amenities in a property. For example, if we are appraising a house with a 3-car garage and the comparable sale we are using for comparison only have 2-car garages, then we must add value to the comparable sale in order for them to properly indicate a true value for the subject property we are appraising. Another example, if we are appraising a home with a pool and pools are worth, say, $35,000 in the neighborhood, then when we compare it to a comparable sale without a pool, we would add $35,000 to the value of the comparable so that it would appear to be the same as the subject property. We would add that value so that the final value would give us an indication of value of $35,000 more than for what the comparable had sold. If a house is bigger than our subject property, we would make an adjustment to the comp by subtracting value from it, or for it to indicate a true value for our house being appraised. Now, probably the most asked question in every appraisal course is, how do you select the right comparables? What is most important? Well, there is no right answer for each occasion every time. Each assignment may have different variables which make one comparable sale more important than another. However, the trends are that they should be close in proximity to the subject property. The sales should be close in time. Usually 1-month-old sale is better than a 1-year-old sale. They should be similar in size. They should be similar in quality, similar in bedroom and bathroom count. But for all these things, once they're selected, we can always make the proper adjustments so as to arrive at a final value conclusion with confidence. Last, there is always the question of how we actually calculate an adjustment to be made to the comparable sales. Well, the most credible adjustments can be calculated and made using what is called paired sales analysis. That is, again, paired sales analysis. Let me explain how this works. If we were trying to figure out how much a pool is worth, we could go into the marketplace into the relevant neighborhood and look at all the sale houses with pools and the sales without pools. If we line them all up, for example, let's say we have 10 pairs of houses. Each pair has one with a pool and one without a pool. With these 10 pairs, we should be able to see how much the pool is worth in all these 10 pairs. Of course, what we are trying to do here is to find homes that are almost identical or even better, as close to model matches that we can. Ones with pools and ones without pools. If we can find these 10 pairs, then the difference in the price points when they sold should be the value of the pool. By the way, here in Orange County, we find that pools are worth usually about 5% of the value of the home. For example, a home that is worth $600,000, the pool would be worth approximately $30,000. A buyer would pay 5% more for a home with a pool than without. So if we do this many times, and we do with each of the amenities of which we are dealing, we should be able to make the proper adjustments to the comparable sales. After doing that to several comparable sales, we should get a pretty good indicator of value via the sales comparison approach to estimate the value. Well, this should provide you with a lot to think about. This is where it gets to be challenging and exciting. Make sure you stay in touch with your classmates, as in this next week we will be selecting some comparable sales to use while we begin to do our first appraisal assignment in this class. Get on your discussion boards and communicate with each other. Have a discussion with your groupies regarding the comparable sales and the kinds of adjustments you are making and they are making. I'll see you next week.